Welcome, everybody, back to the Padernacht Podcast, Brick by Brick. This is episode 5. I am Stephen Padernacht, your host, and today we're going to do something a little bit different. I wanted to implement a sort of Q&A session. So what we're going to do is I've pulled a list of, maybe 10 to 15 questions, and they're all related to the topics that are going to be covered later on in the podcast and that have already been covered, but they kind of dive a little bit deeper. I think that a lot of times when people are doing podcasts or they're doing interviews, a lot of the answers are surface level, and you don't really get to the real answer until you're 2 or 3 layers deeper. In sales, you're trained to find out people's motivation, whether you're selling a product or a service or you're training a new salesperson. You want to speak to your prospect, and you want to ask as many questions as possible and come from a sense of curiosity. So today what I'm going to do is I'm just going to answer some questions, and I'm going to try to give a lot of perspective, or my perspective, on these answers. I've pulled the questions directly off the internet, and these are just very random. I have Claudio here in the studio who's going to help me read the questions. What's up, Claudio?
What's going on?
Okay, so you ready to start shooting the questions at me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what do you got?
All right. Question number 1. What was the most pivotal moment in your life that set you on your current path?
I think, and I don't want to be sure not to rush into the answers on these, but the most pivotal moment in my life that set me on my career path would probably be that moment that I've explained before, where my father kind of told me, like, if you wanted to go out and get a job working for somebody else, then you could do that, or he was going to teach me how to make money and not depend on anybody for a check for the rest of my life. I think that moment is probably the most pivotal that set me on my career path. I didn't know when I graduated college or when I finished college what I was going to do, to be honest. I just knew that at that point, you're 23 years old. You don't really think too far about what's going to happen in the future. I knew that I wanted to be, financially free. I knew that I wanted to choose my own path, but I didn't know where I was going to go and how I was going to do it. My father, by giving me that choice and by training me for that year, really gave me the ability to really make that dream a reality. So I would say the most pivotal moment in my life that set me on my current career path was that year that I spent with my father, and him really, buckling down and putting me through the school of Howie Padernacht. I mean, I went to college for multiple years. I went to high school for 4 years. I went to grammar school. I did all this stuff, but that year, or those 2 or 3 years before he passed, were the most important in my life, and that moment is probably the most pivotal that put me on my current career path.
Cool. Next question. Was there a moment of failure or challenge that completely shifted your perspective on life or work?
So when we're talking about failure, listen, honestly, every single day there are moments of failure, right? Like, you wake up in the morning and you have your plan set and you know exactly what you're going to do that day, and you set forth and you say, okay, today I'm going to make sure I'm in the gym by 5 a.m. or make sure that I hit the sauna, I hit the cold plunge, I'm in the office by 7:30, so on and so forth. I'm going to get in, I'm going to make 100 calls. But what happens is that you get smacked in the face and your phone starts ringing, you open up your emails, and the world starts coming at you. So, every single day there's failures that kind of define my life. But if I'm going to think of specific failures, I would probably have to go back to COVID. And I'd probably have to go back to, at that point I was riding high, and we were doing really well in the development world. And we had, finished 3 or 4 projects, and we were starting 2 projects. And I think the mistake that we made was that we bit off more than we could chew, and we started 2 projects at one time. And, we're still dealing with the fallout from that, and we're here now. I mean, we're in 2025. COVID was 2020. So 5 years later, I'm still dealing with the fallout from that. So that is a lesson that continuously rears its head at me. And it was a really monumental, I don't want to call it a failure, but it was a real learning lesson for me, just to kind of make sure that you don't bite off more than you could chew. I mean, maybe we were a bit over ambitious, but I would say that is probably the most pivotal moment that has kind of stuck out to me so far.
Cool. All right. Next question. What's one lesson you've learned from the home buying or selling process that you wish more people knew?
So when you're talking about people that are buying homes or selling homes, it's real simple. It's two people, right? It's buyers or sellers. I think that the most important thing that any buyer or seller needs to do is to educate themselves. And I wish more people knew how to find the valuable information. I mean, right now we're living in the day and age of fake news. I mean, you could open up your phone and your algorithm could start giving you these so-called experts and people who kind of, are telling you giving you different advice. And I hear it every single day when I'm talking to different clients. And they're like, oh, well, what about this? And what about that? Now, there is usually a sense of truth to a lot of those theories, I guess you can kind of call them. But what I would say is that I wish that every single home buyer and seller really took the time to educate themselves when it comes to the process and getting a reputable source, somebody who's actually done it, somebody who has a track record of success, and somebody who's willing to offer them, I guess, not necessarily a mentorship, but really walk them down the path. Now, it gets a little tough though for people because I feel like people don't want to pay for certain services, and they feel like they could just go and list their house for sale or go out there and buy a house without an agent. Now, I'm not saying you necessarily have to go talk to an agent, but talk to an attorney, talk to a lender, talk to somebody that you trust that is going to give you the best advice, and go out there and educate yourself on the process and see where you can kind of figure out how you're going to get the process done in the least amount of time and save the most amount of money.
Cool. Next question. What advice would you give to first-time homebuyers who may feel overwhelmed by the process?
So I sat in a buyer's consultation yesterday with a first-time home buyer, and this was somebody who's been on the job as a police officer probably for the past I guess maybe 5 years. And I went through the home buying process, and what I like to do is I like to pull out what's called a timeline, and I literally go step by step. And there's probably about 10 to 15 different aspects of the process that I can help them or guide them along the way. Now, it's not just me, right? You have an entire team. You have an attorney, you have a lender, you have a title closer, you have an inspector, you have an appraiser. So there's a lot of different people in the process there. And it's extremely important for you to understand that process from beginning to end. So I would say for a first-time home buyer, just educate yourself. Just kind of going back to the same, answer as before. Like, it's just really learning the process, breaking it down. Whenever you have a big goal or a big journey ahead of you, it's really important to break it down into smaller steps. So just to give you a perfect example, right? The first step that I would make with a home buyer would be to sign up with an agent. And so learn all about like what's going on and what that actually entails. Don't just go sign a piece of paper without understanding what it means. The next step would probably be researching neighborhoods. So if you're going to start researching neighborhoods, figure out what's important to you and break that down. Are schools important to you? Is it being close to transportation? Is making sure that you have parking? Is shopping important to you? Whatever it may be. Do you want to make sure that you live in an area that is more urban or suburban? Like, research the areas and break down every single step from beginning to end and understand that process and all of the things that it entails.
Nice. Have you ventured into any other businesses or investments outside of real estate? And if so, what motivated those decisions?
Yeah, so I've been involved in a lot of different businesses in my life. The bar business, obviously, we've gone into great detail about. I've been involved in the music business. I've been involved in when I was in college, I was working as a telemarketer, and I was involved in one of those multi-level marketing projects. And, so I've been involved in a lot of different projects, and I feel like what's more important to me to stress is my ambition and my willingness to stay open-minded to get to the end goal. The end goal is financial freedom. The end goal is to be able to not necessarily have absorbent amounts of money, but to live a life of happiness and fulfillment. And for me, the way that I choose to do that is by making sure that I have enough money and I'm focused on these businesses, so that way I could try to get to that point where I don't have to necessarily wake up and go to work every day, and I could choose whether or not I want to work on a specific project or maybe work on sales or whatever the case may be. So the motivation is always the freedom that comes along with the potential profit that would come from that business.
Can you tell us about your parents or grandparents? What lessons did you learn from them that have stayed with you today?
I think that, I've talked about my mother. I've talked about my father. Of my 4 grandparents, I only knew one. I knew my father's mother, my grandmother. Her name was Edna. She was a very, very, very strong-minded woman. And she was with us until I'd say probably I was about 20. Let me just think about this for a moment. 2009, 2011. I was probably in my late 20s when she passed away. But so she was the only grandparent that I ever knew. And what she taught me was unconditional love. I mean, she literally I've never met somebody who was so proud of her grandchildren. It wasn't just me. Listen, we all joke, and if any of my cousins are watching this or my brothers, we all joke and we say that I was grandma's favorite. I always say that I was grandma's favorite, and my claim to that is that I was also the last grandchild that she had. I mean, after me, there were great-grandchildren, but I was the last grandchild that she had, and I was also the youngest of her youngest. So I feel like I was her favorite, but what my grandmother taught me was unconditional love and to be proud of your family. Like, you don't get to choose who shares the same bloodline as you, but, those people are the ones that are going to be there for you when you really need them and when push comes to shove. So my grandmother taught me literally, I would say those 2 things. It would be unconditional love, and it would be just being proud of the family that you're from.
Cool. All right. If you have kids, when you have kids, what are the most important lessons you want to teach them about life, work, or legacy?
So for those of you who don't, again, know me personally, I am engaged to be married in October. We're currently filming in March 2025. And my fiance has 3 children, and we've been together for going on 9 years now. So her 3 children, honestly, in my mind, those are my children as well. And the lessons that I pass down to them, or I try to pass down to them, is to be a person of integrity, to work hard, to think outside the box, and to make sure that you're living a life that you want to live. There's so many people that I see that are out here that take jobs just to be able to pay bills and don't know anything about financial freedom and don't know anything about compound interest and all these different, sort of things that are out there for them. So the lessons that I try to teach them are really based on allowing them to not make the same mistakes that I made in my life and to set them up for future success. And, God willing, one day, if I end up having, kids of my own, then these are the same lessons that I'm going to pass on to them. It's important to teach kids that they don't necessarily have to follow what's going on. I mean, most kids, if you look at them, they're just stuck on their phone. They're just looking down on their screen all day long, and they're just being fed information that could be fake, could be detrimental. And frankly, they're just a product of the information. It used to be that you're a product of your environment, but now you're a product of your algorithm. So, these are the lessons that I'm really trying to teach, I don't even want to call them my stepkids at this point, but these are the lessons that I'm trying to pass down to them. And these are all the lessons that I also try to pass down to any of the people that are in generations behind me.
Well said. How do you want your family to remember you and the life you've built together? So that is an amazing question. I feel like, I'm a big legacy guy. I believe in legacy. I think that we're put on this earth to make it better and to leave it in a better place than when we found it. So the legacy that I want to leave behind me is that a legacy of giving information, giving knowledge,
and just helping, people that might not necessarily be able to help themselves. That's the legacy that I want to leave. And those are kind of like my guiding principles. And I feel like everybody has to have, certain core values about them. And I don't think enough people take the time to actually think about what their core values are. I mean, we know them, right? Like, we know the difference between right and wrong, and we know what we're willing to do or what we're not willing to do. It's just a matter of really being able to express them and being able to live your life and teach those, not necessarily teach those, but use those guiding principles in every single decision that they make.
Nice. What traditions or values do you hope to pass down through future generations?
I think that, listen, I have two nieces and I have two nephews. And then, of course, I have the three, and I have the three children that are in my own household. So those, 7 people, I feel that it's extremely important to teach them to love your family, to treat your mother with the most highest regard, right? Respect your elders, respect your father, respect anybody in your life that is offering or giving the shirt off their back for you. I don't know if, who knows, what the next generation's going to bring, and who knows what they're going to do, but they are our future leaders. And if we're not here to educate them and to show them right from wrong, then we could be on a very, very dangerous path. I posted something on social media today, and it said like something to the effect of, my favorite activity these days is basically unfollowing or unfriending people, depending on the platform, that are way too extreme on the pendulum, whether it be the right or the left. And this is surely not a political podcast at all, but I feel like, for me, I want the people that are closest to me to know, and especially the people that are in my own household and in my own family, to know that you have to take a central sort of view on a lot of topics, especially when it comes to the political world, because anything too extreme to the right or too extreme to the left could be extremely detrimental to you. And if you don't educate yourself and understand both sides, then you're never going to be able to get to a deal.
We're going to shift a little bit.
Sure. Shift away, my friend.
What's one lifestyle habit or routine that has had the biggest impact on your overall happiness or productivity?
This is a great question. This is an amazing question. And, I think an episode or two ago, I shouted out Dave, and I have to do it again. Dave and Sean and the entire Ace family, the first time I plunged, the first time I did a cold plunge, it was absolutely life-changing. Like, literally, and that was maybe a year and some change ago. And ever since then, I've been absolutely addicted. My perfect morning routine consists of putting stress on my body and my mind. And what that includes is I usually do about a 45-minute to an hour workout. That usually consists of any sort of like a strength workout, maybe, some mobility. Then the next thing that I do is I go into the sauna, and I have an app on my phone that allows me to do a 10 to 15-minute guided meditation. I'm doing that in about 150 degrees. And what that does is it allows me to just set my mind right for the day. And then immediately after that, I jump into the cold plunge. So that lifestyle hack, that putting the pressure on your body first thing in the morning and exposing it to different sort of extremes, extreme heat and then extreme cold, really has been an amazing change for me. And then you throw in the meditation there and the breathing, like it's a game changer. Like by the time you're done with the plunge, you're ready to conquer the day, and you've already done so much more than everybody else that's out there.
I got some follow-ups here. I hope you're ready.
Yeah.
First follow-up. So part A.
Yep.
Talk to me a little bit more about this meditating in the sauna.
Yeah.
So you're in heat.
Yep.
So your body is already like struggling to like, I guess, acclimate to that environment.
Yep.
And you're deciding to now throw meditation as a, talk to me about that.
Okay. So
I like it.
Yeah. So when I first started jumping in the sauna, I was a member of one of these big chain gyms. And when I first started going into the sauna, I would just throw some music on. I would set a timer, and then I would sit there and I would just maybe stretch a little bit, and you see some guys come in there and they start doing push-ups or whatever they're doing. But I really had heard a lot about meditation and specifically guided meditations. And then, when I went on that last retreat, that last ACE retreat, we did a guided meditation there. So when I came home, I wanted to try it on my own. And I'm not real big on sitting there and just sitting and being still in general. So I feel like in the sauna, it allows me the time and the opportunity to just sit still for 10, 15 minutes and listen to something and take my mind somewhere else because it doesn't allow me to focus so much on what's going on in my body.
I like it.
It's a game changer. It really is.
I may have to try that.
Yeah. And they have these guided meditations that are amazing. And it's every single day. It's called the Daily Trip.
Ah, that's awesome.
It's amazing.
That's awesome. So part B.
Go ahead.
Part B. You jump from the sauna, from extreme heat.
Yep.
Right into the plunge, extreme cold.
Yep.
So anyone that may know me is already going to laugh here because I struggled to jump into a colder pool in the summer.
Yep.
So the plunge for me has not been something that's been easy. I don't even do it. Let me not even lie.
Yeah.
How hard is it to go from your body's already warm, it's over kind of warm, it's overheated, and now you're jumping into something that's already going to be freezing to the point that's going to drop your temperature so far down. Yep. How does that feel?
It's amazing. It feels amazing because think about it when you're getting.
Is it hard?
It's the hardest part is in your brain. The hardest part is mentally saying to yourself, I'm going to go, I'm now sweating, drenched in sweat. You've been sitting in 150 degrees for the past 10, 15 minutes. And then you immediately go out, take 5 steps, and then you boom, go right into the plunge. But that 5 to 10 seconds when you're holding on to the side of the cold plunge and you're about to go in, that's the hardest part. And what I learned, I did 75 hard last year, and part of it was reading books, and you had to read 10 pages a day. And one of the books I read, they were talking about how you have to run towards the adversity. Whenever your brain tells you that you shouldn't be doing something, that's just the weakness in your body. So whenever I try to do this, that whenever my brain tells me, hey, you shouldn't be doing this, I do it. And that's how I treat the cold plunge every single morning. And by the way, the last hack when it comes to that is breathing, right? Breath work. So the way I do the plunge is when I get in there, I take 30 deep breaths. And then what I do is I hold my breath for a minute. And that usually takes about 3 to 3.5 minutes total. And I got that from somebody online. I don't remember who it was, but that breath work. So now I've put extreme stress on my body by working out, strength training my muscles. Then I jump into the sauna and I'm sweating out all the toxins, but I'm also feeding my brain with this I'm just putting it in another place. And then immediately I go into breath work and I cool my body down.
That's awesome, man.
And I try to do that before 7:30 every morning. Monday through Friday. The weekends a little bit later. And big shout out to Vinny and Tommy and Nikki and everybody over at the Body Blueprint because the setup that they have there is top notch. I mean, you have a state-of-the-art equipment for gym use, and then immediately you could jump into a sauna and a cold plunge, and you have personalized bathrooms in there, so you're not sitting there like these big gyms that are all dirty. I mean, huge shout out to them and finding them and seeing the path that they've been on so far, and that gym is just absolutely top notch.
That's awesome. So it sounded like you were saying that all I think about is I want to eat pizza. And I'm trying not to eat pizza every day. Don't eat pizza. What you're saying is lean into the opposite and go eat pizza?
No, not at all. Not at all.
I'm just messing. We're cutting this out. We're cutting that out.
Not at all.
Be a quick cut.
At all. But the thing is that no, don't cut this out. Keep that there because the thing is that flip that around. Right?
Well, I was kidding. I don't. But it was so fun.
If somebody wants to eat pizza and somebody for me personally, shit, I wanna eat ice cream. I was talking about this yesterday. You know what I miss? I miss a hot brownie with some vanilla ice cream and some whipped cream around it. I haven't had that in probably over 2 months or so, right? Because I'm trying to watch my figure. Or I don't like to say I'm on a diet by any means. I like to say that basically I'm just trying to make healthier decisions. Yeah, healthier decisions. But I want that. So just like when I wake up in the morning, I want to stay in bed, so I do the opposite. I want the pizza, so I'm gonna do the opposite. I want the brownie and the sundae or whatever it is, I'm gonna do the opposite. And that's kind of how I would look at it. That's my life hack.
I wouldn't have pinned you as a ice cream guy.
Oh my God, vanilla ice cream, forget about it.
I thought I was gonna bond with you with the whole pizza thing.
I love pizza too, dude. I'm one of the things I'm trying to avoid as part of this healthier lifestyle is I'm trying to avoid pizza, fried foods, and any sort of sugary drink. So no soda, no juice.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I can't do the full. When it comes to lifestyle like hacks that, just to kind of circle back to the question, I can't do the full blown like keto or whatever these other diets are out there. I don't want to do that. I just want to make healthier decisions because I want to have longevity. I don't want the quick fix of losing 50 pounds in whatever amount of time. I want to just over time get healthier and stronger.
Cool. This is actually going to segue into my next question. If you could give one piece of advice about health or fitness to your younger self, what would it be? And can you describe like what's the younger self? What's the age that you're going to?
So for me, I would say it's twofold, right? So I would tell my younger self to not lean into alcohol as much and not drink as much. I would also tell myself I would tell my younger self to do whatever you could possibly do to not pick up the habit of smoking. It is between smoking and the alcohol. Those are the two things that if I had to go back to my younger self, I would say, Steven, do not get involved in those two things because you honestly they're traps. I mean, you can't, it's extremely difficult to break both of those habits. And right now I am trying to stay away from the alcohol. I've done a pretty good job. I listen, in my 20s, going back to my late teens, early 20s, the drinking and the smoking was, almost 3, 4, 5 nights a week. And I abused my body and, I paid for it. Right. But now that I'm, in my early to mid 40s, I'm doing the exact opposite. The smoking habit, I haven't touched a cigarette or listen, I'm not going to lie and say I haven't touched a cigarette, but I haven't bought a pack of cigarettes. I can't even tell you the last time I smoked a cigarette. But what I did was I segued out of cigarettes into vapes. And so now I'm trying to break that habit. I feel like I've broken the alcohol habit because I don't even miss having a drink anymore at all. And I'm never going to be the guy who says that he's never going to touch a drink again. That's not what I'm trying to portray here, but I'm not going to abuse it to the levels that I was doing before. And when it comes to smoking, I'm still fighting that habit. So if I had to go back to my younger self, I would say absolutely do your best to not abuse alcohol and to not get caught up smoking. And maybe go to the gym at a younger age. I adapted the gym when I was in my early 30s. So I'm very relatively new, I would say new into the sort of being in that sort of gym life. I would have started when I was earlier. I would have started when I was probably my, early 20s going to the gym. And because the gym has helped me make better decisions outside of the gym.
Do you think that your younger self would have listened to your older self?
Man, that's a great question. My younger self, and I think all of our younger selves didn't listen to anybody that was trying to really give them advice. Your average teenager, your average 20-something-year-old is not listening to the advice that anybody's offering to them. So do I think my younger self would have listened to me? Only if it was a situation like Back to the Future where I legit showed up as an older version of myself.
Slap you in the head a couple times.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to make you rich, but you better do this.
Yep.
Yeah, that's.
I think that would have been the only way for me to be able to listen to it. And it's so dumb because my father was a smoker. So I grew up in a household with a smoker, and that was kind of what, led me down that path. And I'm not going to blame my father, not by any means, but I just saw it, and it was just natural for me to let's pick up a cigarette. Dad does that. And then by the time I realized what was happening, it was already too late.
Well, it was also different times. If you remember back then that the cigarette thing wasn't. It had just started getting bad. They were talking bad about it.
Yeah.
But prior to them, so their generation, they were being told that was a good thing. It was almost a healthy thing to smoke cigarettes.
It was so, but what it was it was the mainstream media that showed the guy who was smoking a cigarette as a strong, sort of tough guy, and they would roll it up in their sleeve. Right. If I was in the '60s right now, I'd have a pack of cigarettes rolled up in this white T-shirt.
Right,
you know what I mean? But yeah, so it's just, the generations just learn from the generations past. And that kind of goes into like what I was talking about a couple episodes ago about like history repeating itself and making sure that you're learning from the past generation. So yeah, do I think my younger self would have listened? I probably not, but because plenty of people told me not to do it. Plenty of people told me not to do it.
But I guarantee you none of those were you from the future.
Yeah, no, definitely not.
So,
definitely not.
All right. Here's the next question. What's one decision in your career that you're most proud of and why?
I would say the decision that I'm most proud of in my career would probably be to join Keller Williams. I think that by joining Keller Williams, it allowed me to be around like-minded individuals. It allowed me to be around people that, were that had the same goals. And, again, my father kind of harped on telling me about sales, and he did a great job. And, like, listen, growing up, Brian Tracy, Zig Ziglar, all these guys, like he would be listening to this motivational stuff in the house or in the car or whatever the case may be. And I didn't necessarily know, I just heard it from my dad. When I found Keller Williams, or when Keller Williams found me, and when I joined that organization, I'm most proud of it because I was around people that had also been exposed to that. And it allowed me to kind of grow as a realtor and grow as a professional. So I think that decision, if I had to just follow it up with one other decision, it would probably be been the partnership that I formed with my current partner, Noah, and the decision that I made to partner up with him and to set us forth on a path that we can get into the development world and really grow in the real estate world.
Cool. When you look back on your work, what do you hope people say about it?
That Stephen had integrity, that he was honest, that he was trustworthy, that he was loyal. Those are some pillars of my existence, I feel like, on the earth. And my business is literally just a reflection of myself. So I would think that when people talk about me in rooms and I'm not there when it comes to business, I want them just to make sure that they speak about me from the perspective of not having anything negative to say. I heard this growing up, that your reputation shows up before you do. So if you have a reputation of being somebody who's a bit, scummy or scammy or always trying to look out for yourself, that's going to show up in your business in different ways. And this kind of goes back to what I was talking about before about having the guiding principles and having certain core values, right? Like, for me, it's important to make sure that my name, and specifically my last name, the Padernacht name, is one that is always looked upon with respect and integrity and dignity. So that's what I would hope that the legacy of my business is.
What values have guided you through life, and where did they come from? We can choose. Or what does the word legacy mean to you, and how are you building yours?
I think that, so, there's the old expression, right? Like there's two dates on your tombstone and then a dash. And your life is really just about the dash. It's not about those two dates. It's about what you do in that time. And, we're talking a lot about legacy, and I like to make sure that I'm leaving a legacy that is here long after I'm gone. I think that, the most important part of legacy is to understand that it impacts not just you, it impacts your family members. Because again, you share a surname with, the rest of your family. So you got to make sure that your actions don't reflect bad upon them, because you never know what room they're sitting in, right? Like, we see it every single day, right? The politician who's got a crazy brother who gets caught up in a scandal and it ruins their entire life, right? So for me, it's important to make sure that the legacy that I leave is one that reflects really well upon anybody who carries the same last name that I have.
Looking ahead, what do you still hope to accomplish or contribute to the world?
That's a great question. So looking ahead, what do I hope that I can accomplish or leave to the world? I want to just leave this place better than I found it. I want I truly, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but like I genuinely, like I found my passion, I'd say probably, 10 years ago, and I realized that my passion was helping people. Like I get the most joy out of helping people and really putting other people in a position to win and giving other people opportunities. I read somewhere that the greatest gift you can give somebody is the gift of opportunity to make money, to feed their family. And that's what I try to leave every single day to people. That's what I do through my productivity coaching. That's what I do through bringing new agents on my team. That's what I do through buyers and sellers and trying to help them build generational wealth. That's what I do at the bar where people can come out for a night out on the town and they can enjoy themselves and leave their problems behind. That's what I do for the employees at the bar. So like literally like that is the legacy. It's just that Steve was somebody who was there and that was able to help me in a time that I actually needed it.
Final question. You ready?
Final question. What do you got?
Hope you're ready for this.
I'm ready. What do you got?
If someone were writing your life story, what would the title be and why? You better not say I Am Legend.
The title to my story would be, that's a really good question. Well, the name of the podcast is Brick by Brick. If somebody was writing my story, and this is, it would be something along the lines of a life. So, well, how about this? Let's go back to this. My high school, the slogan for my high school was Men for Others. I went to Fordham Prep in the Bronx, and it was Men for Others. And I'm not sure if that was a Jesuit thing. And the Jesuits are a specific order of priesthood within the Catholic Church. So I would say, Stephen Padernacht, a man for others. And why would it be that? Because, again, just going back to the last point, like my passion is genuinely helping people. And yeah, like I'm a businessman and I want to live a life that is extremely happy and fulfilled and but at the end of the day, like a lot of it, like I've put the opportunity to make money aside many, many, many times because of it wasn't either the right situation or it wasn't, let's just say, call it a win-win deal where everybody comes out a winner. And helping people is something that I feel like is a win-win in every situation. So I think that would be my title of my book.
I love it. That was great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So are we done? Okay, cool. All right. Well, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Episode 5. Hopefully you got to dive a little bit deeper into my psyche and kind of how I move and how I think about things. And remember, when you're talking to somebody and they give you an answer, try to dig 3 levels deep because that's where you're going to find the real answers. Stay tuned for episode 6 coming next week. And thank you very much.